tiptoe through your life, digging in the dirt. You can stress on the strife, but I'm gonna fly past the worry and the pain today. I'm flying on faith, flying on faith. I'm flying on faith, faith. You could cry all night about the things that you hate, so dissatisfied in so many ways, but I'm gonna find a way to celebrate today. I'm flying on faith, flying on faith. I'm flying on faith, flying on faith. Picked up my baggage and I threw it out the door.
Good morning, and welcome to Be Radiant, the place where we build and empower you to live a radiant life. Remember, we are here bringing you practical information to help you live your everyday life, your best life. And our endeavor is to bring on guests that can give you information that will enlighten you and give you the opportunity to do just that. Well, today is no exception. We have a beautiful sister that's going to come on here and talk about giving dignity to the current and formerly incarcerated people. If you read the information that I have put out this week, when we begin to have conversations about the distribution of resources, or we start talking about new initiatives that are going on, the unfortunate thing is that we don't see the inclusion in that conversation of current or formerly incarcerated people. And we recognize that in order for this society to continue and to move forward, we have to find out, what do we do for those people that have entered into this system? How do we reintegrate them into our communities so that they are productive citizens and able to reach their full potential? And when they reach their full potential, so does society. So this young lady is going to give us some insight and some wisdom today. And so I just want you to welcome Charlotte Garnes into the room. Good morning, Charlotte.
Good morning, Miss Valerie. How are you?
I am great. And I'm so excited about hearing about your journey, hearing about the information that you have for us today, and seeing your beautiful face.
Thank you. I have so much information, so I'm here for it. I'm so thankful for this opportunity because I think this is a conversation that needs to take place. Yeah. Especially around the church. And I think that's so important because Absolutely. People tend to forget, about directly impacted people who are incarcerated and people coming out of incarceration. So I think this is a much needed conversation.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times, Charlotte, we feel that we are so far removed from that particular situation. But as I sit here right now, I can think of in my immediate sphere. Yes. I can think of people who have been in prison, or currently in prison in my own immediate sphere. So it's not so far away. And I always tell people when we talk about poverty, even I said, a lot of times people, they make a few dollars and they feel like they've arrived. But I always say, you know what, we're all about one illness away from poverty. And I stop and I say that same thing. We're one mistake away from being incarcerated. So we need to really understand how to make this a part of our lives, that we're making lives better for those who are incarcerated and those that are coming out. I've heard so much about the conditions that they're living in, and it makes my heart break for that. So this is an important conversation. I believe it is an important conversation. So tell us, Charlotte, a little bit about you.
Well, where do I start? About me, I actually was born and raised here in Georgia. I am an original Georgia peach. Grew up, had a great life. Can't say I went without too much of anything. I was the seventh child. I'm the baby of the family. Was always taught that education, like education was the way out for me at that time frame. Went to Georgia Southern, graduated from Georgia Southern, moved to Atlanta for a couple of years, didn't really, find the fanfare in that. And then I relocated to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I worked in getting my master's and began to open a business. And my business that I opened, I was a counselor. I was a licensed mental health therapist and a licensed substance abuse therapist. Had 3 offices, were doing very, very well for myself. And I actually had a contract with the Department of Defense. Got into some legal troubles due to Medicaid billing, was sentenced to a 60-month sentence in federal prison, served those 60 months plus an additional 2 years of federal probation, relocated to Savannah, or to the area, because that's my family's in Georgia. I was, being the baby, I was the one that kind of got to push the borders and got to push the limits a little bit more. So I was the one to leave, but everybody else was here. So I came back here to truly recenter myself, because I lost everything, you know what I mean? And I had to literally start from scratch, not having a place to stay, not having a job, not having the same amenities that I had before. And it's not even about, the house, the car, any of that, just the resources that I was familiar with having an education, having a license, didn't have that. So relocated to Savannah to really help myself reestablish myself and to help with this, as they call it, reentry or reintegration back into the community. And have been working with formerly incarcerated, did that while I was incarcerated, but doing the work post-incarceration. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here.
Well, I can hear the passion that you have. So tell me this, when you stood in that courtroom and received a sentence of 60 months in federal prison, what are some of the thoughts that were going through your head?
Some of those thoughts stemmed from looking around and seeing the very thing that was happening to me was happening to a lot of Black therapists and a lot of Black social workers. So getting the 60-month sentence, it was earth-shaking and shocking. And it was earth-shaking and shocking because the one thing that the judge used against me was the very thing that I was told would take me or would propel me to the next level, was my education. And the judge told me I was too educated not to have known what was going on with my counseling practice. So my enhancements came based on my educational level. And because prior to getting sentenced, I was working on a PhD, and I was 2 classes away from completing my PhD in counseling psychology. So all of that was brought into the mix and to them looking into my case, and then for them to go after, because it wasn't just me, it was several other therapists that Black therapists or African-American therapists that experienced, I'm sorry, my battery's about to die, experienced the same thing. And so when you look at those factors of race, of gender, because it was a lot of females as well, it began to open my eyes to a system that, wait a minute, this is not that blindfold of justice doesn't matter when it comes to me. It doesn't matter when it comes to other women or other Black therapists that are going through the same thing. And the ironic part was there were Caucasian therapists that had been brought up on the same charges that did not receive prison time, that did not receive any type of jail time. They were allowed an opportunity to pay back the fines and the fees, and they were allowed an opportunity to keep their license. Wow. So when you talk about the experiences of what I experienced when I heard the judge say the 60 months, it wasn't just the 60 months. It was the factor of, wait, because there are other people that's gone through this very situation that you've allowed to walk out the courtroom doors. So how could this be so different?
So you mean to tell me, sis, that justice is not blind? It's definitely not colorblind. It sounds like, huh?
No,
Wow.
and when you talk about we, as in, and you knowing people within your immediate family, it was the same thing growing up. I probably heard or, knew of like one person or maybe two people that had gotten in trouble. But as now I begin to maneuver and work, been working in the system and been working in this space, and even prior to incarceration, to where working in the communities of, my brothers and sisters, it's amazing because 1 in every 3rd person or 1 in every 3, somebody has a felony. And out of the 2.3 million people who are incarcerated, the majority of those people, over half, are our Black and brown brothers and sisters. Wow. So it's like we see that the system is set up to do what it was created to do, and that is to keep us, and when I say us, Black people, people of color, in a constant state of like chaos, turmoil, depending on the system. And most importantly, a system of failure and a system of oppression.
Right. And Charlotte, as you speak about that, people may say, well, over half. Okay, well, half. But you got to think about, we represent about 13% of the population.
Yes.
So how is it that half of the prison population, or over half of it, is Black and brown people when you're only 13% of the total population? So that gives you some idea of how prevalent it is in the Black and brown communities. This is taking a little bit of a turn, but I have recognized, Charlotte, that prison is a big business.
Oh, prison is a moneymaker. And it was amazing to me because while I was incarcerated, I spent a lot of time reading, writing, and researching with what I could, because we didn't have access to the internet. We didn't have access to recent or current documentation or research information or even, for example, current books. And I can speak on that because while I was incarcerated, I worked in the education department. So I was privy to certain things or was able to see, or the lack thereof, available resources. So just having or not having the information, when we talk about, the lack of resources or the lack of information readily available, for example, while incarcerated, the expectation is for people who want to obtain their GED to be able to get that. But how are they able to get that when you don't have current GED manuals? You don't have the current book. You don't have the most recent textbooks. So it's like a system of you're setting them up to fail. And then when you speak of big businesses, people have the notion of, and I can remember hearing this growing up, because you got to remember the federal system was created back in the day for like the more so the mob, the prominent crimes and things of that nature, because there was a time when people were incarcerated, they could wear their own clothes and they can have cookouts and things of that nature. But as the dynamics of the race begin to shift, they begin to take out those privileges, or so they thought. They begin to remove those from the federal system. So people always had the notion of, oh, if you go to the feds, you'll be taken care of. Not. I had to literally, for healthcare, I had to pay for my own healthcare. If I had to go to sick call or to go to a dentist, I had to have money on my books to be able to live and to survive. If I had a headache and I needed something, naproxen or something outside of ibuprofen, I had to literally go to commissary and to pay for those things out of pocket. So when you think of prison being a business, it is a revolving door. And for every head that goes in and out of those doors, there's a accumulated dollar amount that's calculated towards that. So when you have 20 people exiting prison, coming out of prison, and you have 50 going in, that's the notion. They want to keep and we were told this in prison, like the beds are gonna stay filled. Period. Like they're gonna stay filled. So when you hear those type of conversations and those type of comments, I begin to identify myself with not just the federal inmate number, but a dollar sign. So I'm only here for your dollars. So you're definitely right, Miss Valerie. Like it is a huge, big business. And that's why you hear so many prisons becoming more privatized. Because people are investing because this is where the money is.
Wow. And, like I said, having had family members that were incarcerated and trying to stay in touch with them to make sure that they're okay, that's a business. They, they charge you $2-3 a minute to have a conversation. These are people who are already family members who are already financially compromised. And it's almost as though they are taking advantage even more. I mean, you pay for phone calls, you pay for emails, you pay for any face-to-face time. They have literally put a dollar sign on every minute of a person's incarceration. You are absolutely right.
Most definitely. And it's because people have identified, we're going to over police. We're going to, stick a crime, a misdemeanor or something that the time could have been served successfully at home. We're going to overpound this person and we're going to over sentence this person because there's a dollar amount associated with this person's life. Literally.
And you just said it, because there's some discretion in how they sentence.
Most definitely.
And so with that being said, when and you've already laid this out, so it's not me speaking, but it's someone who's been through this process where I can have two people, they've done the same thing. But if there's a difference in the complexion, there's a difference in the sentencing. And it's hard to swallow, but it is the truth.
And I can attest to that because a young lady that was within my case, her dollar amount was higher, and she didn't look like me and you at all, and she only received 18 months.
Wow.
Versus the 60 months that I received. So it's most definitely prevalent, and it's most definitely something that a lot more people are starting to take notice of, and they're starting to attest and to push back with it into this system that supposedly is justice for all, but we know it's not.
It's not. That is so. It's sad when you hear it, but I can imagine it's not only sad but maddening when you have to experience it.
And I guess for me, it became like a righteous anger because it's like even now, that's kind of the fueling that I hold on to, that righteous anger to be when I become angry or I see it happen with someone else or I hear it happening somewhere else. It becomes that motivation piece for me to say, look, like we have to do something and things need to be done. And it takes me to a notion of not just being in the streets, but figuring out ways to get into the boardrooms, to get into these legislative rooms and to look at policy and start attacking it from a whole different perspective and I'm definitely not downing anyone that beat the streets because that's needed as well.
Absolutely.
But for the ones of us that are able to get into spaces to have the voices heard and not to have the voices heard and to be listened to and to not be overcast by people who aren't formally incarcerated. I think those are the spaces and the places that we need to be into more often, because this is when we begin to see more policies and things and initiatives taking place to start chiseling at that system that's been in place for so long, that's held us in a state of oppression for so long.
Absolutely. You are so right, because and I think, sometimes I stop and think that they don't realize what they're doing when they put an educated sister in a bad situation, because she comes out swinging, y'all. I'm just saying.
But and you're so true, because my sister says this all the time to me. Like, the judge had no idea what he was doing. And I laugh. I'm like, he didn't. But at the same time, it didn't feel that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
going through it didn't feel that way at all, because it's like, wait a minute, I've done everything right. Like, how dare you? And for you to use the very thing, the education piece, and to throw it back up in my face, it was like, why bother? Why continue to do or to have the same vision and dreams that I had before? And it shook me spiritually, to be totally honest. It took me to a place of like, God, really? Like, come on now. Like, what is this? What I'm supposed to? You mean to tell me you want me here? Like, wait, I know I said wherever you go, you want me to go, I'll go, but this ain't what I was thinking. But as I began to truly unpack and heal and deal with what I had to deal with, because there was some things I had to deal with, and to do that and maneuver in the gifts and the calling that God had given me, it was like the judge truly didn't know, because he created and he opened the door and the space and the opportunity for people to hear, and for it to be a clarion call for people in this system, in this movement, affected by an oppressed system, but to be the ones to call for the mass exodus out of Egypt. And not only that, to leave with more spoils than I had came in with originally.
They said they left with a high hand, Charlotte.
Yes.
They left with a high hand. Absolutely.
Although he didn't know the monster he was creating, God knew. And God knew this was what was needed to push me to that next level. So I when I tell you I can't complain, I can't complain.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, we're going to have you back on for another conversation, because I want to hear some more about the space you were in, the headspace, and how you went through that and, progressed spiritually. Absolutely. Yes. But I also want you just transition, because you come out now and you have come out with, like you said, a high hand. You're like, you know what? Now I'm ready. Now I know. So Tell me a little bit about some of the things that you are doing to, as the title is, bringing dignity to the current and formerly incarcerated. What are some things and initiatives that you are working in now to help put a voice to the voiceless?
Oh my goodness, it's so much. First and foremost, I'm the operations manager with the Bail Project, and the Bail Project is a national nonprofit revolving bail fund. And what we do is we go into places and cities and we pay the bails of individuals who can't pay them for themselves. And we are currently in Augusta, Georgia. We are in Atlanta, both Fulton County, Atlanta, and DeKalb County. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're in so many other places, Chicago. And if you all just saw a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, Chicago is now the very first state, the very first city to do away with bail. So, and we started, that was one of the places we start. So the Bail Project has really taken hold to really banish bail. And what we have to remember about bail is we don't set bail. Bail is set by the judge. So you have people who are sitting in jail, who've been in jail for 2 years, 3 years, or a year, because they can't afford to pay $1,000 bail. So again, when we talk about the systematic racism or things to keep Black people oppressed, bail is one of those things.
Yes.
I also am the owner and operator and founder of Reinforce. And what Reinforce is a nonprofit, and we provide collaborative trainings for people who are formerly incarcerated or who have background issues, who's unable to get employment. So we work with them to give them job readiness and things of that nature. And I took it a step further in creating this nonprofit. I didn't just want to work with the employees. I wanted to work with the businesses. And what I do with the businesses is I train them to provide a culture or workplace of inclusion for those who are just as impacted. And I'm thankful for that, because a lot of businesses they truly have no clue of how their workplace culture sometimes isn't conducive to people coming out of incarceration. And I also have Innovative Staffing Solutions, which is a for-profit staffing agency. And for me, I think that's so important, because I wanted to create a staffing agency not specifically for people to get like the warehousing jobs and things of that nature, but I wanted to encourage and push a little further to have my employees to look into more so career-based positions. So positions to where they are able to sustain not only themselves and but their families as well. Because what people don't know is sometimes people serve their time, they serve their probation and parole time, but they still have fines and fees associated with them that they have to pay. And if they don't pay, sometimes they go back to prison. So just looking for career-based positions allow people the affordability to be able to take care of themselves.
Absolutely. And you just said something. The system is set up where, like you said, the bail, they can't afford bail. So they sit in prison, or in jail, I should say, for years waiting for a court case. And that is already going to be unfairly decided. It sounds like in a lot of situations, it's already biased against them, because if they can't afford bail, they can't afford a lawyer.
Exactly. Not only a lawyer, think of the loss. If a person has been in jail for over a year, they've lost their place to stay. They've lost their family sometimes, which means the rights to their children. They've lost employment. If they had health benefits, all of that is out of the window because they can't afford to pay $1,000 bail. Once they get out, although they haven't been convicted of anything, they have this background. So when I go apply for a job, that's going to come up. When I go apply for housing, that's going to come up. So it's like, I might as well stay in here, because if I stay in here, when I go out there, society hasn't set it up for me to succeed on that end either. So it's like, I don't know where to turn or where to go. I've seen people literally sit in a jail, I kid you not, Miss Valerie, for 8 months for the inability to pay a $500 bail.
Whew. And you would think, for me, I sit here now and I think, if I were in this situation where I was a judge, my thoughts would be on not just, what the person did, because of course that has to come into factor, but I would want to know, how does this person even gain a life after they live here? And somebody just posted it. Probation is also a joke. It is, because it loops you in a never-ending system, meaning you start paying probation. And if you get into a hard situation, like you said, if you can't find a job, how do you pay probation?
And they go back. And Georgia is, I think, number one with the amount of people on probation and parole with the worst sentencing. There are people here in Georgia who served 10 years and they have an additional 10 to 15 years of probation that they have to complete. And it's like, how do you anticipate people serving time and then getting out and giving you an additional 10 more years of this time? And like she said, it's a joke because you have probation officers who are not really, they're not person-centered. And what I mean by that is they're not looking at the person itself. You're attaching the charge or the crime or the time this person has served to this face. So when you have that, you have a probation officer trying to make a decision of, okay, you have to go get a job, not taking into account, I've been trying to get a job for the last year.
Yeah.
Can you help me? And I think people in corrections, and I don't want to sound harsh against people in corrections because I have siblings who work in corrections, but I think what we need to understand, or what they should understand too, is the fact of when you have someone that's trying, you are to be a resource.
Yes.
You're not to be the judge and jury all over again. You are deemed a resource. And I pray that they begin to operate in that space of helping and coming from a place of, this could be you. Yes. Because I remember reading in prison, it was a book, and it's been a while. I think it's 3 felonies a day, to where the average person commits 3 felonies a day and have no clue they are committing 3 felonies a day. But if you were caught, and that's the thing, and that's one of the things we have to think about. We've all done something, but if you were caught, on some of the things that we've done or we continuously to do, so I think when we allow grace and extend it that way, we begin to see things differently.
And the thing about that, like I said, some of us are just one mistake away from being incarcerated ourselves. And a lot of those mistakes are committed out of ignorance. I don't think people are out there intentionally doing things. But if you're caught at that moment, you are caught up in a system now, and that system is not blind. It is not blind. It is biased. It is.
And I think also too, people are trying to survive.
Yes.
People are trying to survive. People are trying to eat. People are trying to keep a roof over their heads against a system that was already created to oppress us. So we're maneuvering and operating in a space, in a society that didn't want us here anyway. So when you have that, and you have people are just trying to eat and feed their kids, it's not going to look the same from me who's arrived than the little girl across the tracks that's like, look, I just got to do what I got to do because I got to eat. Me and my brothers and sisters haven't eaten in 3 and 4 days. So this is what I got to do for us, So I think people tend to forget that because, like you said at the very beginning of this conversation, they've arrived.
Yeah. And my thought about arriving, first of all, is where are you?
Exactly.
Where did you arrive? And in addition to that, it is when you do get into a place or a position that you're doing better, do you not have a desire to help pull someone up with you? And so that's why I look at small business owners. I recognize that they are building and they are making a way for their families and for their generations to come. But be open and to calling a Charlotte and saying, Charlotte, I have 5 positions open. I'd like to give at least one of those positions to someone formerly incarcerated. Can you recommend someone? Putting something like that in your plan, in your business plan, your business model, I think it would be phenomenal.
And not only phenomenal, you're helping reduce recidivism.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. Because if you give a person coming out of prison and opportunities, and studies have shown this, post-incarcerated people are the most loyal.
Yeah.
They felt that you've taken the opportunity to extend grace,
Yes.
to extend a chance of redemption, and you begin to build self-esteem. You begin to build loyalty. You begin to instill all of those things that we know is needed to be successful in society. So
Absolutely.
for me, it's amazing because when I do share with people about the staffing agency and I say, I work with justice impacted or system impacted individuals, and they'll ask me what that means, and I'll share with them. It's amazing because, we don't have positions, or we don't hire, people coming out of prison, or people who have a background. So, and it's sad to see, because in Atlanta, they do it all the time. And what we have to realize in Savannah, or in this area, is Savannah, after Atlanta, after Fulton County, Savannah is number 2 for people coming out of incarceration, and they are returning back here. So when you continuously tell me, no, I don't hire these people, or I don't, so what do you expect? You end
up with someone who reoffends.
Exactly.
Like you said, that recidivism is continuous. It becomes a revolving door. Yes. So what do we do when they say things like, this is a system set up to restore you, or to, what is the word? It's not coming to me, to reform you.
Reform, yeah. No. And I hear that, and I've been told that Savannah is that place, and I'll hold my tongue on that, but I can speak for myself. I've had to be the one to be the voice for me. I've had to be the one to share my narrative, to say this didn't work for me here in Savannah, or this did work for me here in Savannah. And when I feel like I have a set of skills that I can possibly take anywhere. And I feel like I'm open enough. I'm a quick learner. I'm a quick study. You know what I mean? Like, I can get it. But to go through what I went through employment wise for so long, to me, that wasn't acceptable. And I think that was that righteous anger that I needed, because if I'm experiencing this, someone who has an education and able to articulate, I could only imagine how someone else would feel who's, don't have that, who hadn't had the opportunities that I've had. You know what I mean? And so for me, it's like, come on, Savannah, like, to be honest, we have to do a better job at doing the thing that we claim we're doing. We have to do a better job at that. And I think it starts with having true conversations with people who've experienced incarceration. It's all good to have allies and advocates, but when the advocates and the allies' voices overshadow of who's been directly impacted and who's formerly incarcerated, we begin to have this murky system and nothing is getting done. And I think we need to be able to have formerly incarcerated people to have that space.
Yes.
This lady to have
I'm
space.
sorry. When we're doing things at home, you come sometimes have interruptions. But yes, and we don't want our little ones to be impacted. I'm telling you, it is, and when you said it, whenever someone's sitting in jail on a bail that they cannot pay, they're potentially losing their children. They're losing their families. Those are huge things. And, I stop and think that, that judge that set that bail, there is no way that they would want their family to be impacted in that way, and so it's just it's a crazy cycle that we see that's happening. Tell me this, how can someone get in touch with you because it's going to be the small businesses, because our big institutions, our big institutions, they are so set in their ways. They are so happy with the money that they have that the majority of the large corporations are not going to open that door. But how can small businesses, and let's just go ahead and say large businesses too, we'll give them an opportunity to do the right thing. Locally, how can they contact you so that they can say, hey, I have some positions open. I'd like to speak with you and some of the people that you represent. How do they get in touch with you?
I'm going to give out my my phone number or my email address. It doesn't matter, and the website. But I am going to say this, and I smile when you said the large businesses, because since last year, with everything that's happened due to Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and even Ahmaud Arbery, there's been a call for change, and people have begun to like want to advocate for that change, and we're coming up on the year of those things. So people are beginning to get like, okay, what's going on, or what can I do to help? And ironically, I can say, thankfully, I was reached out to by a large business. Good. It wasn't here in Georgia, but anybody that knows me know I have no problem packing up, getting on a plane to go do what's called of me. So, and prayerfully, that's going to work out. But it's amazing to start seeing this shift in corporate America of people beginning to say, okay, I need to do something different. I really need to be more inclusive and diverse in what I'm doing and who I'm hiring. So I smile when you said that about the large businesses, because I think it's going to catch on, and I pray that it does. But if anyone needs to get in touch with me, my personal cell or my work cell is the same thing, is 912-222-1390. And also my website is innovativestaffingllc.com.
Innovative Staffing
LLC.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can, yes. And my email is charlotte@innovativestaffingllc.com. And it comes directly to me, my phone, because like I said, I will, I travel and I do other things, but but I think this is, like I said, this is a conversation that needs to happen. And it's not just about getting people to work per se. It's truly about change, like recidivism, decreasing that recidivism rate, setting a person up to succeed. And also, because I'm starting to work with another nonprofit to start building and teaching asset and wealth building and what that looks like for people coming out of incarceration. And I think that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother aspect and component that we don't even think about. But I think that's the thing that goes back to what you were saying about the children. These are ways we can set children up and families up to where they don't have to necessarily experience the things that we've experienced. And I think it's so important.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it at the top of the time that we've had here. Churches, our faith community has got to figure out a way that we are helping to meet the spiritual needs of those who are formerly incarcerated, or even the families as they are going through this incarceration, because it's not just the person that is in prison, but it's their families. It's
their families. And I think that's something that we tend to forget about, the families, because I can say that my family struggled while I was incarcerated, and not financially, but mentally and emotionally, and somewhat spiritually as well. And I thank God for the church family that my mom and my sisters and brother had, and they continuously have. And I still am in contact with some of the pastors that pray with my mom and things of that nature. But coming out of incarceration and coming into churches or visiting different churches and things of that nature, it people coming out of incarceration, when we speak of church life, it's more of a, oh, I no, I'm good. I don't want to go, because we've already been a part of an institution that's judged us, that's condemned us, that didn't offer any type of redemption. So why would I serve 5 years in prison to come out to be a part of a church home that's going to continuously do that to me as well? So I think it's when we talk about churches, we need to talk about that spiritual aspect and that spiritual aspect of redemption, teaching grace and what that looks like, and not being judged by, oh, they said you did this and continuously. No, it's like, I don't need you to repeat that cycle of beating me up.
Absolutely.
When that's what I'm having to deal with on a daily basis in my head. And I think churches tend to forget that.
Yes. And I'm just going to say this, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but Charlotte and I, we've known each other now for, I'm going to say about 4 years, at least 3 years.
Yes.
And today was the first day that I have heard really why Charlotte was incarcerated, because I didn't think that was important. You know,
we never discussed that. You know what I mean? Like it was just, and the thing was, and I appreciate Miss Valerie for this, because Miss Valerie would be in those spaces that I would be in, spaces of protesting, spaces of wanting to get more knowledge, spaces of advocating for people coming out of incarceration, or spaces of just education and figuring out what is this community doing for people who don't have the same resources. And I was thankful to always see you in those spaces, Miss Valerie, because that gave me a sense of, this is what community, this is what Jesus meant to me. When I studied, when I was in prison, and the pastors would come in and pour into us. So many of them would come in and pour into us. And I can honestly say, sometimes that was the lifeline that I needed to continue my spiritual journey. Yes. So to have that behind the wall and to get out into a community and to see you in those same spaces that I would accompany, it's like, this is what Jesus meant. This is what he truly wants. Absolutely. To see pastors, to see people of vision, to see people doing his calling and his work. And so I thank you for that, because like I said, we've known each other for 3+ years, and you've always been that face. I've never gone to any type of event and not seen you there. Now I appreciate that.
That's all God, I can definitely say. One thing I know about the Bell Project, when I had heard about that, and I said, let me tell Charlotte.
You did.
Let me tell you this about Charlotte. Charlotte is a go-getter. I mentioned it, and the next thing I know, Charlotte has not only applied for the program, but the girl, I'm just going to say this, is running the program. I look and I love that about you. And the thing about it, Charlotte, is that there are so many formerly incarcerated people that have that same drive. They have that same spirit. They have that same determination, but they've been written off so many times that a lot of them just give up. What do you do about that?
You are absolutely right about the Bell Project. You are the reason. And I tell people, they were like, how do you get to the Bell Project? A pastor friend of mine saw it and sent me the link and was like, hey. So I think what we have to realize is me being a go-getter, like we said in this conversation, I've always been a go-getter, but I think this prison and my situation, my circumstance, that go-getter like mindset and drive, it was enhanced. It was heightened because of this situation. Not only that, as I began to maneuver in this space, in this movement, and it's sad to say, in this community, I didn't see a lot of me. I didn't see a lot of movement. I didn't see a lot of voices being raised. So the very thing that I've had to do, and I continuously do, is to tap out of Savannah and go into these spaces and places to get my social justice awareness spirit tapped into. It's nothing for me to go to Atlanta. I work very closely with an organization called Restore Her, and I sit on the board. And my sister, I love her to death, Pamela Wynn. Pamela is the young lady who got the dignity bill passed here and throughout the United States. She's working on the CARE Act for this upcoming year, and I've tapped into working with her. I was a part of Just Leadership USA, their cohort 2020. Just Leadership is a national leadership organization for those who've been directly impacted, who pour into their leaders. So for me, I've tapped out of Savannah or into the local area to tap into places and spaces, like I said, that I needed to get my social justice spirit fed. Because the very things that I see going on in Rhode Island, I have a good friend, my peer mentor, she's out of Rhode Island. She does phenomenal work with the Department of Corrections in Rhode Island, to where she's able to go into prison and get people coming out and walk them through providing case management and things of that nature. And it's being able to have those connections to see what can be done here, because although I may travel to those places, get those ideas and get my spirit fed that way, my community is still here.
That's right.
And until Jesus tells me you need to go somewhere else, this is my Jerusalem. So this is where I will do my work. And this is where I will continue to fight, to speak out and to speak up and to advocate for people who's not quite there yet. But if they get around me, they gonna get there. I can assure you.
Yes. I absolutely love this conversation. It is so needed, and we're going to have to continue this conversation. But I tell you, Charlotte, I heard you say something. I hope that there's someone listening today, or if you all will share this conversation, share it in your groups, share it on your Facebook page so other people can be encouraged by this. But I hope that there is a young woman out there who may have been, or a young man who may have been incarcerated, and they can see, wow, this sister is on fire. This sister has not allowed what happened to deter her from being her best and living her best life. And I can do the same thing. I hope also that if you know someone locally or not, because Charlotte has got connections. She's just told you, hey, I don't have to just be here in Savannah. I can do things in other places. Contact Charlotte, reach out to her. She's given us her phone number. She's given us her website and her email address. Reach out to Charlotte and let her know so that we can get some things going on in our community, in other communities, get some people employed, because we want them to not only feel like they have to reoffend, but they have options. This young lady speaks to their spirit, and she speaks to that physical need that they have. So I am excited about it. I just want you to know Radiant Church has some things coming down the line. We're a tiny little church now, but I always say despise not small beginnings, because there are some big things that are coming down the line. But I appreciate everything that you have told us here today. And remember the Bell Project. Remember Reinforce, which is a local nonprofit that helps to educate your staff. And so that you not only have an environment that is hiring people who are formerly incarcerated, but you create an atmosphere and culture that welcomes them, and you understand how to work with them. I love it. I love it. See, I was listening to you, girl. I was listening. And then we also have the innovativestaffingllc.com. Get with this sister. Get with her. Get behind her. Begin to help her push these initiatives And if you sit in a boardroom that makes decisions about staffing, speak and
Exactly.
say that we need to give opportunities, because if we want them to reintegrate, or whatever word the byword is of the day, if we want it, then we have to be a part of making it happen, because formerly incarcerated people, they don't have the power to push into those rooms, but there's got to be a voice. It can be an ally or a peer, but let's get some people on those boards that have been in those situations.
Yes.
Bring a Charlotte on your board. Good God Almighty.
Yeah. I think that's so important. And also too, April is Second Chance Month. So I think we all should just take a moment to reflect on that and start getting some things and pulling things together, because since I've been in Savannah, since I've been out of incarceration, because April 27th will make my 4th year of being out of incarceration, I've yet to see a community truly embrace what second chance looks like. So I think we all need to begin thinking of that, because the thing about it is, formerly incarcerated people, we're not going anywhere.
That's right.
We're here.
Right.
We're here.
Right.
And I can wake up with a new hairstyle. I can wake up and decide to put on new glasses, but I can't wake up to not having a felony. I can't wake up to not having a background follow me. I can't wake up to not having to check that are you a felon box. I can't wake up to not having my license taken from me because of my conviction. So for me, it's like we have some things we can separate ourselves from, but a second chance and redemption as a formerly incarcerated person, I don't have that option. So I would just ask that everybody that's listening or that hears me or sees me, just to know and understand that April is Second Chance Month. And we as a community need to begin pushing that narrative and embracing that narrative of how can I, as an individual, extend grace and second chance to those affected by the judicial system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Charlotte, can you give us maybe one or two, give us a couple of suggestions on how to do that? You know, because some people may say, you know what, Charlotte, I'm with you. I want to extend that second chance, but give me a couple of suggestions on how to do that.
For me, it's look within your community. If you know somebody who needs a job or who's hiring, you could advocate for that person. It's not about donating or giving money per se all the time. Right. It's your time and your talent. Yes. If you could be that voice for that person when you would normally be the voice, that's giving a second chance. If you have opportunities to mentor, if you've yourself been affected by the judicial system, and this is something that you've kept in your closet and you haven't shared because of condemnation from society, maybe this is your second chance to be able to say, hey, this happened to me. Let me share with you what I experienced or how I got, to this place. I think we tend to forget, like, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take much to help or to speak up or to speak out on something. Yeah. So I would just suggest speaking up. I would say if you have, the opportunity to volunteer at something, do it. If you have anything on social media that you can post, just bringing awareness, any type of awareness and knowledge. I think knowledge is like my golden nugget. I love knowledge. So just having that. And if you want to donate, you are more than welcome to donate to Reinforce. But if not, that's even still fine, because there are other ways that you can help. And it could be something as simple as just speaking up and speaking out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Charlotte.
Thank you.
If you would like to donate to Reinforce, go to www.reinforce.org and you have an opportunity to sow into this ministry, because that is the ministry portion. This is the nonprofit side of what Charlotte is doing. And of course, Innovative Staffing Solutions is the for-profit side, but it also helps to get people jobs and get them back into society in a helpful way. And so I am so excited. You have made my Saturday. I just want you to know that it is always so refreshing to speak with you. And we're going to have you back. I just want everybody to know we're going to have you back. And I always end with this question because I think it's so important. Our whole purpose on Be Radiant is to build and empower people to live radiant lives. And so what are you doing right now to build and empower yourself to live a radiant life and to have joy in the journey?
You know what? I think for me, as I shared, April coming up. It'll be my 4th year out of incarceration. And I remember where I started, how I walked out so broken, unhealed, and not knowing. But I reflect. So one of the things that for me is I reflect and show humbleness and a grateful heart. Like, I'm so grateful for where I am. And when I say I'm grateful for the mishaps. I'm grateful for the mistakes. I'm grateful for the closed doors, and I'm grateful for the open doors, because within that time, it's truly shown me joy. It's truly shown me joy because I can be joyful anywhere. I can remember some of the happiest times have been for me while I was in prison. So I know what joy feels like. So to be in a place of doing what I love, which is pouring back into a community, into people who look like me, who have a background, and welcome those people and welcome people with open hearts and open arms and just trying to help, that truly gives me joy. It was amazing. And I'll share this because I know we're running out of time. But in December, when the Bell Project we was working in DeKalb, we made it a mission right before Christmas to go get as many people out. We were able to bond out about 15 people right before Christmas to be able to go home and to spend time with their families and loved ones. And it was such joy in my heart because these were people who have been in jail for like 2 years or 9 months and things of that nature. To be able for them to go home and spend their Christmas with their families, that's my joy. That's my passion. That's my radiance, because I feel like for such a time as this is the reason God has me here, planted, blooming, blossoming, even sometimes when I don't feel like it. I'm doing it.
I love it. I love it. That would bring me joy as well. Yes. I can tell you, I just want to remind people that the Bell Project, they are helping people who have not been convicted of anything. Exactly. They have not been convicted. They are sitting in jail waiting to go and have a trial, to even face, their accusers or whatever. And they're just sitting there. They're waiting. So the Bell Project gives them an opportunity to go home, even build a defense, because if you imagine sitting there if you're innocent.
Exactly. And we see that. Yeah. And I just want to say this, that when the Bell Project posts the bails for these individuals do not have to pay us back. They do not have to pay us back. It is a national nonprofit revolving bail fund. And what that revolving means is when we successfully, because we just don't bail them out and just throw them out there. Mm-hmm. Again, a lot of us who work with the Bell Project have been system impacted. So we know what that's like. We work with local community organizations, local nonprofits to provide counseling and different services that the client may need to help them. And we follow them and we work with them up to the closure, the successful closure of their case. And what we see is over 90% of our clients return to court without any issues, and we're able to get that money back. So when we post bail, our clients are not responsible for paying us back, but we're able to get that money and take it and help the next person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And every time I think about the Bail Project, I think about Kalief Broder, who sat in jail for 3 years because he could not afford bail for stealing a backpack, is what they thought. But it turned out he didn't steal the backpack.
Exactly.
He didn't even steal the backpack, but he couldn't afford bail. So he sat in a jail for 3 years where he was beaten and tortured, not just by other jailmates, but by guards.
Exactly.
And this young man came out with his psyche so destroyed that after, I think it was 1.5 years after being released from jail and exonerated, they, said, hey, he never did it anyway. He killed himself. So we have people who are sitting in jail, young, Black, brown people, and white people. I'm not going to make it sound like it's not affecting them as well, that are sitting in jail that have never committed a crime. The only crime they've committed is that they are poor and cannot afford bail. That's their crime.
That's it. That's exactly it. And that's why I'm thankful for the Bail Project, because you see, your eyes are open even more so when you begin to see and hear, because we have contact with our clients. So we're able to hear what led them to that place and how they aren't able to make $1,000 bond or bail, or a $500 bond or bail. So yeah, when you hear it, it's really saddening and disheartening. But at the same time, it's more motivating to, let's get you out. Let's get you some services. Let's get you some help that you need, to where when you do return to court, one or two things are going to happen. It's either going to be disposed of or dismissed, or it's going to be some other systematic consequences. And even with those are still like somewhat successful, because what the judges and what the community see is this person has been working with different organizations to ensure they've gotten what they need, or in the process of getting what they need to remedy their current situation. And I think that's the thing we have to realize. Like, and I look at community and I hold community responsible too, because you have so many organizations saying we do this, but they truly don't. And it's like, you're setting us up to fail, or you're setting people up to fail by not being able to provide a service that you're either getting governmental funding for, or you're just refusing to do. Wow. So I think that's important. And we have to look at that. We have to look at community as well.
Amen. You'll be back. You'll be back, because I feel like we have just started to have this conversation. Thank you so much, Charlotte. Stick around for a minute, because I'd like to close out with you, okay?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Wow, what a conversation, and it has just begun. We bear a responsibility to those who are currently and formerly incarcerated, to let them know they deserve a second chance, because someone has given you a second chance, I am sure. And we want to be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. Make sure you reach out to Charlotte, get more information, get this young lady on your team, because I promise you and everyone around you is going to be better because of Charlotte Garnes. Thank you so much again, Charlotte. I think we need to have her back next month, since it's going to be the month of second chance, because we want to have more of this conversation. And so I look forward to seeing you. Share this. share this, because I guarantee you there's someone out there that this is going to mean something to, and they are going to be able to take advantage of some of the services that Charlotte provides. And I saw my Yada T out there, Yada Tanya Denise Samuels, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist that is in favor of this project. And I got to make sure I have to let Charlotte see that she wants to offer in some way her counseling services to those who have been affected. That's it. That's what we're here for. That's what Be Radiant is here for, to connect people, to help others have a radiant life. Build and empower. Be Radiant. I love you guys. Have a great Saturday. I'll see you here next Saturday, where we are going to be talking about Operation Hope. Free financial services that are available to help you not only increase your credit rating, but also begin to build some generational wealth. So I will see you next week on Be Radiant. Until then, you guys have a beautiful, beautiful Saturday. Go out and do something positive and make some changes in this world. Love you to life.
You could go ahead and tip